maybe.
Okay, Austin, we'll start filming.
Yeah.
Which is great. Let's hear a bit from Matt as to like what your day looks like in terms of what coffees you're having. Starting from the morning, is an Americano your usual go-to?
Yeah, so actually in the morning I usually make a pour over at home.
Okay.
And then I keep half of it so that I can mix it with protein powder after I come back from the gym. So
I'm mixing protein powders with coffee. Yeah.
Are you also adding the mushroom?
No,
It's been a new thing. Everyone's asking me. Yeah, at the gym that they're adding the mushroom extract. Apparently, it's obviously
What sort of mushroom? Like the kind of mushrooms that I
no, not the ones. No, there are a couple of brands that have come.
But I think it's Ace blend, yeah, and it also
alchemy does.
yeah.
Yeah. So Irvin, he reached out to us to like places coffee, and like I tried it out, like Lion's Mane, like different sorts of like
Yes, I consume Lion's Mane. But yeah, it's interesting.
Do you notice a difference?
Yeah. See, initially you do, but after a while, I think after 1 month or so, then it just sort of fades away. Though.
Yeah.
I guess initially you will find that difference, but not for too long. That's true for many supplements, in fact. Ashwagandha, that's another one. You're supposed to have it in cycles.
Yeah.
So supplementation, some of these, you have to have it for a brief period of time.
Exactly.
Pause and then go back again.
Yeah.
And not coffee. Coffee should be had all the time. Many times.
That has never changed.
Yeah.
So what do you guys feel about a caffeine break? Do you take that?
It's impossible for me to take it now.
No, I don't know. I mean, so I end up drinking 5-6 cups a day.
What are you saying? That's a lot of coffee.
Oh, but there's all these studies that, Scandinavia, they drink tons of coffee.
Right.
So they've done a lot of research there. 5 to 6 cups a day is where you get the maximum health benefits.
Really?
In terms of like Alzheimer's, cancer prevention, liver protection.
Yeah.
So
okay, I can definitely see
you guys should like upgrade your coffee.
Yes. But when's your last coffee? I think there's 6 p.m., right?
6.
That's fairly late.
Yeah.
No?
I guess, I mean, for me, I can have a coffee at night and still have a great sleep.
Yeah.
But I've seen most people cannot go. I mean, they can't go beyond 3-4 p.m. because it disrupts their sleep.
Correct.
So I guess it's person to person. For me, it doesn't matter. But they say about 5-6 should be your last.
How long has it been since you've been having like 5-6 cups of coffee?
Oh, for years.
Started?
For years now.
Yeah.
But I'm the same. Like there's certain people who are caffeine insensitive. So even if I had a cup at 8 or 9, I'd still be able to fall asleep.
Right. The first time that I interacted with Blue Tokai as a consumer, I think I was going to college, or like I was in a little before college. Maybe you guys were hosting some sort of a workshop at the Sedler Job Store.
Yeah.
Something happening. I think Beeman Words was doing something, or like something on those lines. And I entered the space and I saw there was a small poster by Pavel Henna and there was Peter Cat playing.
Yeah.
And they've been like, I think they curate your playlist.
Yeah.
Right?
Pavel Henna, yeah.
Pavel Henna.
Yeah.
So it's been, and that time I was interacting with that sort of culture, like more art music around. Yeah, dude, this place is so damn cool. Like there's Pavel Henna playing, there's Ditty and like Peter Cat, and so you guys have been early adopters of like music culture as well. Like you've been in the space when all of these things started. So I've been a big fan of that. So how did those collaborations come about? Like when did you move to India? When did you start Blue Tokai?
So I moved to India in 2011. I was working at a job in Chennai. Doing financial research. But actually my family is from Chennai, or half my family. So I thought I'd move to India, spend some time with them, do this job, be there for a year, and go on to some other project. Ended up meeting Namrata, who ended up becoming my wife. Chennai is a city not a huge fan of, though Namrata loves it. And my family was there. It felt a bit sleepy and traditional.
Right. Was your family based in Chennai?
Yeah, I was born and brought up in the U.S.
Okay.
My father's from Chennai.
Okay.
So his side of the family was still there.
Okay.
So like cousins and uncles and all of that. But Namrata's family was from Delhi, or lived in Delhi. And I love Delhi as a city. Yeah. So then in 2012 we moved. Yeah. And then in 2013 is when we launched the brand.
Lovely. Yeah. And you launched with one store.
Yeah, that's No. So for the first 2 years, it was just online.
Oh, okay.
Really? There was online presence in 2013?
Yeah.
How were people purchasing?
It was word of mouth. So we would do like farmers markets here.
You were retailing dinners back then.
retailing on a very, very small level. Like, I don't know if you know Altitude Store, or they are one of the first customers.
Okay.
We did a little bit of wholesale, supplying to other people. It was only in 2015 is when we opened that first cafe, and that was in Sedilajah.
Okay.
So then it was like how to build a community, how to be more than just about coffee. We really wanted to highlight the Indianness, so all the coffee that we source is from India.
Sales in coffee back then.
I mean, it was the chains like Cafe Coffee Day. It will be a second wave of coffee. Yeah, totally.
I think the first guys to.
We're the #1 rated podcast on Mars. Like, share, and subscribe to do the same thing on Earth. Do it. Do it now.
Okay, what are the waves of coffee? There's apparently like 3 waves to coffee.
Yeah, so first was like instant coffee and mass production.
Okay.
Then second was this idea of more of cafes as the third space.
Okay.
So less a focus on coffee itself, more focus on having coffee at a cafe.
Yeah.
So that's when you had like Starbucks and all the other coffee chains come up.
Yeah.
Then third wave is about focusing more on quality.
Okay.
So working with growers directly, sourcing very high quality beans from them, telling their stories, roasting in smaller batches so that you maintain
more
bitter
coffee.
Right, yeah. And then really focusing on how you brew it, not these automatic machines, like having baristas who understand coffee and are able to extract good flavor out of it.
Right.
So that was the third wave.
Yeah. And what's the fourth? Is there a fourth?
Fourth, they say, is more automation and more engagement with, so basically the preparation will be done more automated, but it'll be more about the experience. So the barista will tell more about the coffee and engage with you as a customer.
Do you do that here?
So we don't do, I mean, we're still more third wave. We don't want to get into the automation bit.
Yeah.
That's not really the experience we want to give. I feel like if you go to a place and they just press a button.
Yeah. Why coffee?
Why coffee?
Why coffee?
It's just something I've always been really passionate about. Right. So way back when I was working, I used to roast coffee as a hobby.
Okay, so you studied in the US. Right?
Yeah, born and brought up there.
Okay, what do you do? So
I moved to college. So I grew up in a very small town.
Okay, where?
In Wisconsin.
Okay.
It was like 20,000 people.
Okay. There are 20,000 people in the defense area at this point.
In my college now, there's probably more people than my entire town.
Right.
So growing up in that, and it's very rural. And so growing up there, when I applied to college, I just picked the biggest cities in the country.
Yeah.
So I picked like New York, Miami, LA, San Francisco, and just applied to colleges there. So I ended up going to NYU and studying finance. So then I moved to San Francisco after that.
Okay. And what are you doing there?
I was doing economic and real estate consulting.
Nice.
I did a hedge fund for some time.
Okay. How old were you when you joined the company in SF?
Yeah, it would have been 21.
Okay.
Fresh out the book.
Yeah. And how old were you when you moved to India?
So when I moved to India, it would have been 29.
For the job?
Yeah.
Okay. This is 2011.
2011.
Okay.
So then...
Okay, so you were working as an economist for 8 years, and then you moved to India as an economist.
Yeah, economic development. So I worked in San Francisco for a while. Then I went into grad school, got a master's degree. Both my parents were professors, so like the good son, I was like, oh, I'll be a professor also.
Yeah. Okay, so that's what you wanted to be?
Yeah.
Okay.
Didn't really like it. It seemed too theoretical.
Right.
But after then, I started doing international development projects.
Okay.
So then I was in the Middle East for a year, then back in the U.S., and then this India opportunity was like a mix of academia plus development.
Okay.
So I thought, it's a cool job. My family's here. I'm having to spend a lot of time in India.
Right. And had you been to India like before?
So in high school, we spent one semester here.
Okay, every year.
No, just I took a year, whatever. One semester off, was homeschooled. At that time, my family lived in like village of Chennai.
Okay,
like outside Chennai.
Right.
So that was a very different experience. Yeah. But now everybody was older. My cousins were older. Yeah, it'd be cool to spend some time.
Was it a cute, big, fat Indian family?
Not so. I don't know how. My family has a lot of like rivalries.
Okay. Every family
is like some group of branch is not talking to the other branch, so you have to navigate that. But it was nice. It was nice to spend time with them.
Chitharanjan, is Chitharanjan Bengali?
Yeah, it's always, but my family's all Tamil. So,
Okay.
yeah,
Interesting.
they've always been from Chennai.
Yeah.
So,
Okay, so a big rivalry amongst like cousins is going on, and now they must be like, oh my god, like Matt's created like such a large business.
yeah, so actually now they've all gone off. They live in like London, Australia, and all doing like good things themselves. So they don't come back so often.
How has your background, education, or just living in Wisconsin influence your approach towards entrepreneurship and building this out?
Yeah. So I think I was lucky in the sense that my mom, she did a lot of research projects outside of the country while she was doing her PhD. So like we went to Egypt, we went to Haiti. So and like we spent that time in India. So I was always had like this kind of like wanderlust and like wanting to like get out and do stuff. And actually, even when I was in San Francisco, I ended up quitting my job and moving to Romania to try and start burritos with an old college roommate, which was a total failure. Like I must have sold like 3 or 4 burritos in 3 months, and then and came back. This would have been like 26, 27.
Right.
So I always had this desire to do something on my own, and then because I was working all these desk jobs, I wanted to do something quite physical. Like I didn't want to sit at a computer all the time.
Right.
So what was the aha moment for you, like to move? Because it's a big change, right? Or did it happen after you moved here?
It happened so I moved here for the job. Then again, both Namrata and I were points in our careers. We were kind of tired of what we were doing.
Did you quit your job first and then start Tokai? And
Yeah. So first we moved to Delhi. I was still doing consulting for the same company.
Right.
Then it was just, let's do something. Let's start something. So then we looked at mushrooms.
Like mushrooms.
Like mushrooms.
Okay.
And now actually there's some cool brands who are making like Shroomery and some of these other Krishi Crest. They grow really nice mushrooms.
Right.
At that time I thought, it's how you're gonna make money growing mushrooms. We'll struggle a lot. But I also used to brew beer. So
interesting.
I thought, okay, beer also at that point in time, craft beer was not a really big thing. And actually, Namrata knew...
even coffee wasn't, right? Like, it also like the culture.
That wasn't there also.
Yeah.
But I don't know, beer seemed a little bit more appealing at coffee at that point in time, just from a personal interest. And Namrata knew, Ankur Jain he started Bira. So before he started Bira, he had this other beer brand. And so I went and met with him and talked to him about maybe trying to like work at a brewery. It just seemed like way too much investment.
Right.
And we didn't have a lot of money at that time. So then coffee became the thing because coffee was also something both Namrata and I were really passionate about. Not able to find good quality coffee in Delhi at that time. CCD obviously is selling a very...
It's still not very easy. I think now it's finally the tailwinds behind coffee I've only seen the last 3 years or 4 years.
Yeah, I would say coming out of COVID.
Yeah,
coming out of COVID is, especially on the cafe side, it's really taken off. I think pre-COVID, it was more like niche home brewers who were interested in specialty coffee. After COVID, now people start to appreciate better quality coffee. They might not know, like, they're not going to say, like, okay, I taste grape and chocolate and berries in this coffee. But they'll be able to tell that this is a very different coffee than a commodity coffee. And I think that's really changed things. So you see now, like, cafe culture has transformed dramatically in the last 4 years. Now, it's not only in the metro cities, but you can go outside of metro cities and there'll be at least 3, 4, 5, 6 places anywhere where you can get a good cup of coffee, which was definitely not the case when we started.
Yeah. Any interesting markets for you while expanding Blue Tokai, apart from the top tier cities like say Delhi, Bombay, Calcutta, or even Hyderabad, Bangalore? Any other city that you've tried and you were...
So we're primarily in those cities. We're like, and that's not because we don't see potential in the smaller cities. It's just that operationally it makes more sense at our scale to be able to open up 5, 6, 7 outlets in a particular market.
Absolutely.
Rather than trying to open up one in, and actually we had in the past. We had opened up one cafe and go open up one in Jaipur. it just becomes kind of like an orphan.
I agree. I mean, because some of the key learnings, we did not go deeper when we were expanding Kevinters. We just went all out.
Yeah.
And it became a problem in the middle. But yes, then we had to change our strategy and then start opening more stores around each other. So you can, I mean, then the operations are much easier.
Correct.
Why I asked this question was because when we were expanding and when we opened stores in, say, places like Calcutta and Ahmedabad, they did surprisingly well for us.
Yeah.
I think the economics work out very well. In terms of people wanting to go out, especially for an ice cream and milkshakes, we found that these cities were very, very different. Like there are a lot more people who are wanting to go out.
Yeah.
And we prefer, in fact, opening in those cities.
Yeah.
Right.
Calcutta, I think, is our most profitable market because rentals are way low.
Correct.
And people want to eat a lot. So the ticket size is very high.
Yeah.
So, I walked into some of the cafes and you'll see the cafe full and no one's having coffee, but just having food.
But like I see that in a lot of Blue Tokais, right? Like I didn't know you guys had an extensive food menu, which you do.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. You have like a lot of people like your pastas that you have on the menu, which I did. So is food a big contributor to like?
Yeah, so it's a necessary evil. I mean, as a coffee person, I say that. So food is actually 40% of the sales
in store.
In the store.
Yeah,
and so half of that is bakery. So the specialties, all the patisserie that they have,
right.
And then half would be the pasta, salad, sandwich.
So how did this Sociali's collaboration or acquisition happen?
Yeah,
how did it happen?
So I mean, initially in the beginning, we had no food at the first cafe.
Walk me through the years of your journey, right? 2013, you started the first store in
2013. We started online.
You started online. Okay.
Then we did wholesale. Then 2015, and actually we never intended.
Wholesale, you mean you were retailing beans?
No, like beans. For example, Lapra used to be one of our customers.
Okay. And were you packaging and selling under the
Tokai?
And where were you sourcing your beans from?
Always from the south. Always from the south. Now we've sort of extended to like Orissa, Andhra, even some of the northeast.
Right.
But we started from Chikmagalur and Coorg.
Okay.
So that was kind of in those 5-6 estates. We still continue to buy coffee.
Lovely. Okay, so that was 2013.
2013 is when we launched. Then 2015 was when we opened the cafe.
How big was the business back then? And what were the markups like? Like, was it a heavy revenue business or was it like profitable? Like, what was
No, it was super tiny. Right? We started, it was just Namrat and I. We had like a tabletop coffee roaster. Her parents had a small bedroom in their house, so that we converted that to where we would roast the coffee. Got some good traction. Luckily they had like a veranda that we covered, and we brought this commercial machine into their veranda,
right,
and hired a few people and started working there. But it was small. It would have been
what was their reaction back then when the both of you would like quit your job?
They were super supportive, actually. If they didn't have that space and help us out, this probably never would have come up off the ground. Actually, we were
what were their professions?
Her mom was a teacher, and her dad was in business. So she actually grew up in Oman.
Okay.
So he had set up some factory in Oman, and then worked with the Omani government. So her whole life, she grew up in Oman.
Right.
Then when they retired, they moved to Gurgaon.
Okay.
So then that's how it's.
So that's why you started. You started roasting in Gurgaon.
And
I would say, would that be super significant, right? That period where you spend time, building this out at Saidullah Jab. I think the maximum, I'm guessing, a lot of loyalists today of Blue Tokai are actually, they're coming from, they visited the Saidullah Jab, or they used to go to that place. Like I would go to the Saidullah Jab to have my meetings, etc. So that's where I became a loyalist of the brand, right?
So I think there we were also able to do a lot more, like, one is it was a smaller scale. So we had the cafe, plus we had the roastery next door. So people had no idea what coffee roasting looked like. Right. So that was a cool engagement that you could come, talk to the roasters, see the roasting happening. Then we did a lot of community events there too.
Correct.
So we used to do like farmers market. So like we did a bunch of events with Achintia and Krishi Crest. We had Taru, that BFS sound system concert. BFR, we had it for 2 years there in Lebac. We used to have art exhibition.
Who was driving this culture for you? Was it you? Like, were you?
So we hired, there was actually this person, she was just fresh out of college.
Right.
And she moved and she just kind of
changed the
Great
game.
job. Yeah, she did a fantastic job.
But like, it's also getting someone to do it is one thing, but also being accepting of what's happening in terms of culture. Like, not a lot of no coffee shop back then. Like, imagine like a barista hosting a BFR sound system. Like, doesn't go together, right?
Yeah.
But like, you guys were really pushing boundaries back then, and that's how I knew of like Blue Tokai.
So I think specialty coffee back then, or better quality coffee back then, didn't really exist.
Correct.
So we had sort of a first mover advantage, where just because we were doing something a bit differently, it attracted a certain type of clientele and customer base, and that overlapped a lot of this culture idea, right? So a lot of these people that we were like, Krishy Kress had just started, so they were also doing something very different. Taru, I think, wasn't as popular as he is now. So a lot of people who were kind of getting started and doing something different, they gravitated to that.
Yeah.
So that helped a lot. Yeah, we've tried to extend it as we go forward, but obviously as you grow and you scale, you can't have you have to do things on a different level than you can curate all of these things in 140 shops, right?
Correct. But you still wanna remain in touch with culture somehow, and like
so I mean, we were talking, like, for example, we still work with Pago Hena. They curate a special playlist with indie music. That's the only music that we play in the cafes. We do a lot. We try and do a lot more smaller events. So like running clubs, we calculate, or we collaborate with. So they'll have meetups in the mornings at certain cafes. There'll be like painting, sipping paint type things. So we still do that.
So when you started your first store, did you ever think, okay, now that I have a retail physical space, let me just turn this into a restaurant? And you had your brewing idea. Did that ever cross your mind? You were like, hey, let's just brew beer here as well? Because like that, it's a huge revenue driver, right?
So coffee is something that we knew very well. Food is not something that we've ever known well. So food has always been a bit of a struggle for us.
Yeah.
So even in that C'est de la Job outlet, the kitchen was outsourced.
It's fairly big. It's a big spot, right?
So that was around 2,000 square feet.
Yeah,
it grew to 2,000 square feet.
Right.
So actually, Rahul and Kainez were the Bhavan, and they were the ones who did the food in the first few outlets.
Okay.
But then once you start to grow, it's hard to find partners who are able to grow at that similar scale.
Right.
And so then we started trying to do our own food, because as a coffee shop, we don't really want it to be a restaurant. It's very difficult to scale that, right? One is, there's always this divide between the kitchen staff and the barista staff.
Right, always.
And two, it's very difficult to retain people on the kitchen side, because if I'm a really talented cook, do I really want to work at a cafe serving, pastas and sandwich? Probably not. I probably want to work at like a restaurant where I can, be more creative and create more dishes. And just, as we got to like 25, 30 outlets, just running 30 kitchens was not feasible. So then we switched to kind of a different model where we have central kitchens. Food gets prepared there and sent to the outlets every day, and then they assemble everything fresh and then heat it and serve it.
Yeah. And how many central kitchens do you have?
So now we have 5.
Okay.
5 central kitchens.
Okay.
So that's how the food model has evolved. And then the Sachali's bakery and coffee have always gone together.
Okay, so tell me more about Sachali's.
Honestly, a game changer. I think the bakes, the sourdough breads, all those things were coming into the house.
Yeah.
And then you found that partnership happening at the store level.
Yeah.
And you've also adopted quick commerce, right? Like with Sachali's. So like the only sourdough that I'm able to find on either Blinkit, Zomato, Instamart is Sachali's. Like that's
it's a little high. It's cheaper to order from quick commerce. It's to order from Zomato from the cafe.
Yeah.
So bakery is always, like, coffee and bakery have always gone together. So we've always struggled for a long time to find a partner who could supply us, pan India.
Right.
So it would be like in Bombay we partnered with someone else, in Bangalore we partnered with someone else, and Delhi we partnered with someone else. And we got introduced to Sachali 6 years ago, I think. And she had just started. She was just in a tiny, tiny hole in the wall off Sona Road.
Off Sona Road.
Off Sona Road.
Wow.
She was baking herself. Her husband was there, like helping her. But she was trying to do something very similar with bakery and patisserie that we were trying to do with coffee.
Right.
So I think she studied in the US, went to like a lot of really nice baking institutes, really perfected her craft there, and came back and wanted to start in India. So we thought, this is great. Like, this is a fantastic product. It'll scale. I mean, we can partner with her. So then as we grew, she also grew. So then when we opened Calcutta, she opened a bakery there. When we opened Bombay, she opened a bakery there. And then because we were working so closely together, it made more sense to just integrate the two companies. And so now it's just one company.
Did you have any investors back then as well?
I mean, from the beginning, we've been having to raise money. Unfortunately, this is a very capital intensive business.
Correct. Agreed.
So
the golden thumb rule is to delay it as much as possible.
Yeah. So, and actually it's funny because before we raised money, we were profitable. Obviously, we didn't have money, so we had to be very, very careful. But when we raised money and then we moved to that Sedil Ajab outlet, that's the first.
Okay, so that's when you opened your first outlet after raising.
Yeah. So from 2013 to 2015, it was our own money. And then from 2015 onward, we have to keep raising money to finance expansion.
Yeah. Now you've raised a big round not too long ago.
I mean, so total capital we raised would be close to 500 crores.
Okay, wow. That's capital you raised.
Yeah, since
inception.
Since inception.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's a bit of a treadmill, right? Like, once you start raising money, you kind of have to keep growing. In order to grow, you need capital. So
is this deployment more towards just opening stores or outside or something else?
I mean, the focus is on India and the majority goes to stores, but we also invest a lot in the back end. So like the roastery that we have has all state-of-the-art equipment. Apart from the roasters, we have color sorters at different processes to remove beans. We have like an espresso compatible capsule manufacturing. We have a cold brew facility.
That's where I get the coffee from for Knox that we were talking about.
Okay.
The Blue Tokai machine.
Yeah.
So it's basically a monthly that you pay for the machine, and the beans are supplied by Blue Tokai.
Yeah.
So I see your beans everywhere, right? Like in a lot of hotels, in like Blue Tokai is everywhere with like their distribution.
Yeah, I mean, still cafes is the majority. It's almost 80% of the revenue is coming from the cafes.
So you're also supplying to other cafes?
We do supply to other cafes, but 80% of the revenue is coming from our own cafes. Okay. And then like 12% is that machine business plus supplying other cafes.
What machine business?
Machine business as in, so for example, we didn't want to get into the business of first aid training, recruitment, and also using a machine, buying a machine. Machines are expensive, right? Yeah. So we have got Blue Tokai as a partner.
Okay.
So we've got this machine for say a year's contract. I don't know the length of the contract, but it's basically at Knox.
Okay.
Gym you go.
Right.
And they supply us beans approximately 10 kgs and you have a monthly subscription fee.
Like this, you know how every office you go to, CCD has a CCD machine. Like every office they have a CCD machine. Okay, like that. It's just a different machine with better quality beans.
Okay.
So that model.
Got you. And like, are those machines something that you're building in-house? Is that like...
No. There's different vendors that we work with that we source it. We just do the coffee and the service of it.
Right. Tell me a little about the COVID market, right? Like that time, like a lot of people went back to like home brewing, actually started exploring a lot of styles. People like me, I bought my first espresso machine. Some other people were making Dalgona coffee and like the reels were all over. And I feel like that's how like the coffee boom in around me happened. Like what was that period of time?
Yeah, I mean, there's two big things that came out of that. One is that obviously home consumption shot up. So, e-commerce and all Amazon ordering, everybody got into that.
Right.
Equipment sales sold a lot, not just this espresso machine, but even like the manual brewing. I mean, it's a bit of a rabbit hole, right? So once you start brewing, you can, like, if you have an espresso machine, you can just get it.
Yeah.
But you can also get a scale, you can get a distributor, you can get a tampering machine. There's all sorts of things. And it has a tendency for people to kind of get really geeky and go down that.
Exactly.
So that happened. But I would say the big change that happened for the industry is that people started getting coffee delivered from like Swiggy and Zomato, which wasn't really a behavior that happened pre-COVID. So, and even when things started opening up, just that convenience aspect has become a big part of the economics of any coffee or cafe. So for us, 35% of the revenue comes from the delivery business.
Yeah.
And that's continued to grow over time because there's not really a takeaway culture here. Indian cities, infrastructure is not so great that you're going to walk to your coffee shop, grab it, go for a stroll, go to your office.
Correct.
Yeah, that
Doesn't happen.
doesn't happen.
Yeah.
The unfortunate part. I think, in fact, I remember the metrics, like the mix of delivery versus takeaway pre-COVID was almost like only 5-7% in the first 2-3 years we were operating.
Yeah.
Today it's sitting at 40-45%, 35%, obviously because it's more cafe-led, ours is more kiosk.
Right.
So unfortunately, we don't have that culture, or maybe not about culture, but we don't have the infrastructure to walk down and pick up our coffee.
It's still there. I see it observe it genre a few times. People come in, they come with their drivers in the car, they'll place their order, they'll get it delivered to their car and then like move around. It's not like, hey, I'm going to pick up my coffee and I'm going to walk around a minute.
Yeah.
It's impossible.
Yeah.
Or you just call for it at home.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the to-go culture doesn't exist as much.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So coming back to the COVID bit, yeah. So the delivery went up for you.
Yeah, so delivery, and then there was a big boom in sort of the D2C, many brands like started during that time. But I haven't seen that home brewing culture then continue to grow at that pace, for sure. It's kind of growing at whatever, 10 to 15% now. So it's more of like a steady state thing.
Yeah.
I see a lot more people wanting to go to cafes because it's more about experience, about food, about having a place to sit and have a meeting.
So that's post-COVID. This is what happened.
Yeah.
Like
and I see more of the growth in coffee culture coming from the cafes rather than from the at-home segment.
I mean, I know e-commerce has sort of plateaued when it comes to what you're talking about, but what about quick commerce? Where do you see that to be a key focus area in the next couple of...
Quick commerce also had a big growth, but now again, you're still catering to the same kind of at-home consumer,
right?
So what's happened is that the behavior has shifted, that instead of ordering from Amazon or from a particular website, I get everyone to quick commerce. It's not really bringing in new people into coffee. So we do see a big growth potential on quick commerce, but that's more for a bakery rather than for coffee. So again, coffee is still growing at 10, 15, 20% on quick commerce, but bakery is growing incredibly fast.
And since you're talking about pre-COVID and now post-COVID, have you seen coffee change, like the profile of coffee, since you started, like 2013, 2015 versus what the coffee that you sell today?
Yeah.
What are the changes in terms of...
I also heard you say in one of these interviews of you that I was watching was that like climate has a lot to do with the kind of coffee that you are able to like procure as well, right?
Yeah. So two parts of that. One is that I would say in the last 3-4 years, on the kind of the leading edge of coffee, like the real coffee consumers, there's a much higher interest in experimental coffees. So coffees that are very like funky and fruity, that will like if you're a more traditional coffee drinker, you would be like, I'm not touching that.
I don't like it either. But anything that's too fruity is not my palate.
Yeah, but the repeats might not be there. It's more like an acquisition. Like I've tried this, of course. I got excited. When I was traveling, I saw these new flavors. You get very excited to try it out. But then you go back to the traditional one today.
Yeah. So there's some people who only want to drink those fruity coffees, and those fruity coffees weren't available. So especially on the coffee growing side, there's a lot more effort being put by the farms to produce more of these type of coffees.
So how does production for like something like that happen? Like how do people differentiate between like blend or roast grow different kinds of coffee?
No, so it's how it's processed. So coffee is a fruit.
Correct.
Coffee cherries get picked
today,
and then how you extract the seed from that fruit has a big impact on the flavor. So there's the old way of doing, or the more traditional way, is washed coffee, where they remove the skin of the coffee cherry. Then they put it in these tanks that kind of eat away at the remaining mucilage. And then you're left with a very clean flavor because none of that fruit kind of dries with the coffee cherry. Now, what they've been doing is they've been taking these cherries, putting in yeast, putting in other co-ferments, putting them in barrels. So then they get infused with a lot more fruity funkiness.
Yeah.
Then those get dried and then they mechanically remove it. So it's a much more labor-intensive process. It requires extra additives, whether it's yeast or co-ferments. But then you get more complexity of flavor,
Right.
which some people like and some people don't like. Other people are looking for, hey, I just want like something with a little bit of complexity, but still tastes like coffee.
Yes.
Whereas these can taste something very different.
What's your preference?
So I end up drinking mostly Americanos.
Yeah.
But the pour over, I get those light roasted funky coffees.
Okay, you like that.
Yeah.
Okay, fair.
Yeah.
Now we're coming back to your question. What do you ask him?
My question was on how the coffee preference has changed.
Yeah.
Right.
I'm drinking medium roast.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, what are since you started or the initial years versus today, have you seen any changes? What is preferred today versus earlier days?
Yeah.
And where do you see the trend going?
I see it's more wider rather than people's preference changing, because what happens is that a lot of people get started drinking dark roasted coffee that they add milk and sugar to. Then they start moving a little bit down towards a medium dark, towards a medium where you can start getting more flavor, complexity, don't necessarily have to add milk and sugar. But once you move down that path, you don't go back towards drinking dark roasted coffee.
Do Indians know their coffee?
Yeah. I mean, so it's not as evolved as like, US or some other place, but there's plenty of people who totally understand the nuance. There's plenty of people who also think they understand who have no idea.
But it's kind of very personal because a lot of people I know, they prefer that very strong coffee.
Yeah.
Because if I have that coffee, it's give me the jitters, right? But and that's their preference. Whereas my preference is for something which is much lighter, right? So how do you really say which one's what's better than? Right?
We don't say anything is better. We say that, okay, if you like dark roast coffee, great. We'll make a great dark roast coffee for you. If you like light roast, then we'll make a great light roast coffee for you.
Yeah.
If we start getting involved and saying, hey, this is better, what you're drinking is not better, then it's probably not going to help grow the market.
But when I'm ordering coffee, say from any place, I don't get to choose my blend of coffee, right? Most places I don't.
Yeah.
Does Blue Tokai allow that?
So there's a reason why. It's because every particular coffee requires a different grind setting and a different recipe.
Yes.
So if I set my machine for the coffee that I'm selling the majority of, and now you come in and say, okay, I want a different coffee, I have to totally recalibrate that machine or have a different machine available.
Right.
So it becomes operationally quite difficult
for sure,
right? Yeah.
You'll find that in smaller cafes, they still have the option.
Yeah.
But I think most large players...
So if you want to make a pour over, that's no problem.
Okay.
If
and you want to pour overs, yeah?
Yeah. So if you can order any coffee on a pour over, and we'll make that for you.
Okay.
If you say, I want a cortado with this particular state,
then
it becomes a bit tricky.
Yeah.
Because then that espresso grinder needs to be calibrated to get the right extraction from it.
So now that you've been scaling so fast and there's so much happening for Blue Tokai as a brand. Do you feel like you lose touch with the creative soul of the brand ever?
No, I think we're fortunate in the sense that there's 3 co-founders. So I look at the coffee part of it. Namrata looks at the brand and the design, communication, and customer service. And Shivam looks after more of the business and the operations. So because we kind of segregate across these things, we have most things covered. So obviously there's tension between the 3 of us at various points where one person wants to push one aspect more than the other.
Yeah.
But at least it's not, nothing gets lost.
Correct. But now that you see like a lot of these premium, smaller either cafes or chains coming up going so heavy on like the community aspect of things and doing like coffee days. I want to also know what you feel about like coffee days happening. Right?
I think they're washed up.
Yeah.
No, they seem to be super popular.
Yeah.
It doesn't really align. I mean, not necessarily align with what we want to do as a coffee shop, but I have nothing against people who. So I mean, I think
That's not something that I want to do as a DJ now. Okay then.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's you have to grow the community in some way, right?
Correct.
So if there's people who are interested in having that, that's great. I'm glad that there's cafes that are doing that.
It's great till the time it's original, and then it just now when everyone starts doing it, then it becomes so gimmicky. Like now that's and anything in India that happens, right? Like then like there's just a more washed out version of the same thing like happening every second week.
I mean, but this is a fad. It's going to happen with any fad. It'll kind of have this huge adoption, and then it'll crash.
Right. And that's what you're seeing in coffee as well, right? So many more brands coming in right now. A lot of VC money also going behind these brands, and they're creating brands very, very fast.
Are there so many will people adopt a coffee as much? Because I'll give you an example. My father has been a tea drinker all his life, right? And now recently, I don't know through what, like through Instagram reels or like whatever, he's reached this bulletproof coffee that he has every morning, like with adding his ghee and like it's surprising, and like he usually has it with his instant coffee, and I was like, stop drinking that trash. Like I literally run a cafe, let me get you some better beans. So like I've introduced him to coffee, so people have adopted, and like people so stuck up in their own ways. Like my dad's 60, right? And like him changing and like adopting to coffee at this age is a big deal. So like they understand like how coffee is so much better than like drinking tea. I wouldn't say better, but like it's different.
It's different. It has like a coolness that
Yeah.
tea doesn't have.
Exactly.
And actually, if you see that as a country becomes richer, they start drinking more coffee and less tea. It happens, and there's a very, very strong correlation between income growth and coffee consumption.
Wow.
So I think India, when we started 10 years ago or whatever, 12 years ago, it was probably early, but now we're getting closer to that tipping point. And to your point about all of these other brands coming in different formats, I think that's the only way a market grows. If everybody is just doing the same kind of coffee shop, similar menu offering, similar look and feel, it'll stagnate because people will get bored. So you have to have all of these people doing bulletproof coffee or coffee raves or the next thing.
Exactly.
In order to just keep engagement going.
Correct. And with a lot of these new, which other brands do you feel, say from like a cafe to like a larger brand, like that you feel is doing a good job within the coffee space right now?
Yeah, so I mean, I think like Subco is doing interesting work.
Yeah.
I think they're very focused on the design aspect and storytelling and putting, a very high quality product out. So I think that's a brand that's it's always nice to see people who are taking a different take, right? Coffee First, I think, is also something that's more on the kiosk, high quality coffee in a kiosk model.
First coffee.
First coffee. So that's something different. Even this AB Coffee, they're trying to do, very affordable coffee in kiosks, and so I think it's good to have this segmentation.
Right.
I don't think that many of these models are going to work out for people.
Right.
But it's good to see that people are trying and experimenting and doing
what sort of models do you think won't work out?
I'm not very bullish on the takeaway.
Okay, no.
Because coffee is still premium, and premium means that people want to have some atmosphere and ambience associated with that. It's not yet, the industry has not yet evolved to a point where people are getting it purely for the functional aspect.
Right.
Which is when you can start getting into the more value plays where if coffee is something that I have to have, then yes, I want to grab this coffee and walk to my office.
I'd rather have it at my house, maybe get like...
Yeah, I'd rather... So then you're competing with the house coffee in the morning, with the free coffee in the office that most offices have.
Right.
So that I think will be a bit checked.
Yeah, how big is that competition for you? Like, because I see... I was working at WeWork in Gurgaon for a bit, and there was a Blue Tokai store right outside.
Yeah.
And like there was free coffee inside, and the coffee that they used to serve with their machines was not so bad.
Yeah.
But like I still used to see people coming in working at Blue Tokai, sitting there, and right outside WeWork, I feel like there was another extension of that as an office space where people wouldn't join like a WeWork, but they'd still be in that environment of like coming and working. So what do you feel about that sort of an audience, right? That comes into cafes to work, and that's a huge audience like that.
Yeah, so I mean, it's a double-edged sword, right? Like people come and they can end up taking real estate is limited in a cafe.
You're right.
So you don't want to have someone order a coffee and sit there in the entire day. Because that's going to really hamper the economics of that store. But at the same time, we find that most people who come and work are very respectful of that, right? People come and sit every day, but they'll order multiple coffees, they'll have something to eat. They become kind of like part of the community of that cafe. So we don't discourage anybody from working from the cafes because that's kind of what cafes are, right?
But it's also hard to estimate because they're also the kind of people who come every day. So the lifetime value that they bring in is relatively higher, right? But of course, you've seen that running a cafe. There's certain businesses where you want the turnaround to be much faster.
Yes, correct.
And especially at the, like, say,
at the scale that we're doing
hours, right? So prime time hours.
Because we're working, you work at a single store, right? Like John does a single store, and like we want like more, like table turnarounds. Like we want like more people to come in and experience the space. But you find those people that come in every day, have their cup of coffee, they'll have an avocado toast. Okay, fair ordering, but they sit for quite some time and take their meetings and do the work. So I want to hear your perspective because I've seen a lot of that happening at Tokai store. Yeah. Like GK2 is like the small WeWork that we've made, right? Like I see people coming in with their laptop stand and monitor stand and there's work going on. I'm like, okay, like this is an intense space.
Yeah, I mean, as long as people are being respectful and understanding, and like if I'm at a table and someone wants to come and sit and have a coffee, I share the table, like that's great.
Right.
When people like put down their stuff, go away for 2 hours, do some run on some other errands, then that's a bit,
and I'm telling you,
too far.
A lot of like startups have come out of like people working at like cafes and especially Tokai, because given the scale of like how many stores you have, why don't you, have you ever thought about like starting an incubator program where you're like, hey, I'm going to fund these companies that are...
No. That's our focus is on coffee and the coffee experience and the food that go along with it.
Do you think that's an interesting thing? Maybe you should...
Listen, I mean, I think when you're growing a business and, I mean, great, it's growing, right? But it's a treadmill, as you mentioned.
Yeah.
You really can't look right or left when you're operating business. It's, I think, better to just stick to what you're doing.
Fair.
So
how's it like it? So he said there's not a big to-go takeaway market for coffee in India. What is it like for Keventas?
So Keventas, you know what? I mean, I partly agree, but there are also kiosks, right? A kiosk model, a takeaway counter works much better at a food court for us.
Yeah.
So what happens is that we've got a Domino's, who are partners now, but let's say a Domino's, McDonald's, etc. So people pick up their foods from these places and they'll get the milkshake from Keventas. So that really worked very well for us, a kiosk model, primarily because the economics work out. You're talking about rentals of just about 1.5, 2 lakhs max average, right? Which is much lower than what you pay for a cafe. But then the earnings per square feet can be very good at a mall. High street is still a challenge because I find it changes city to city. Like I said, in some places, there is that culture of people doing the takeaways or just, parking their cars and just going to the stores. But in Delhi, it's a bit of a challenge to open more high streets. Like, I think we're pretty much there in terms of the number. Beyond this number, it gets gets difficult.
All
economic sense.
Tokai stores are fairly large. Right? Like this is
we used to have, now going forward, the new ones that we open are this 800 to 1200 square feet.
Yeah.
In the past, we used to do office kiosks, stores, smaller format cafe.
You have a bunch of your flagships. You have one, this I would consider to be a flagship. It's fairly big.
This would be like the standard size going forward. It's just that for us, we found that in a kiosk, what happens is the revenue that you're able to generate gets capped.
Okay.
So it's anywhere from, let's say, 5 to 7 lakhs of revenue per month. But operational intensity of operating that kiosk is very similar to operating a full-scale store. So we might as well, that same bandwidth, we might as well deploy towards a place that can do 20 to 35, 40 lakhs.
What's the rentals are a big difference, right?
Rentals are a difference, but then your profitability of that store is, would I rather operate 10 kiosks earning 50,000 net profit a month,
Or 3 stores?
or
That's the difference here. Like for us, in terms of people that we hire, we don't really need the baristas, right? Also, they're very special. I mean, you can't just find them everywhere.
Yeah.
For milkshake is fairly easy to make.
yeah.
So we prefer to operate in a model where the rental is 2 lakhs. The average earning could be about 8 lakhs per month.
Yeah.
And the profitability is about 20-25% at store level.
Okay.
And that's our model.
Yeah.
I think the model that you're talking about, Blue Tokai, is very different that way.
Yes, but I don't know if you opened up like a 2,000 square foot store, would you be able to generate 40 lakhs?
Absolutely.
Probably not, right? So in that segment, it makes more sense. I think for coffee, for whatever reason, it's more associated with sitting down and an experience. So that's why we have to have these larger stores.
There's also a lifestyle aspect to this business, right? Which is, are you doing merchandising? Are you doing some sort of innovation on the lifestyle front of things?
So we have, I mean, we've fallen under this FDI for multi-brand retail.
Okay.
So we can't have other brands within the cafe.
Okay.
So we do have like our own equipment, our own t-shirts, our own merchandise.
Yeah.
But if we were able to have other brands, I think that would be a much more compelling proposition than being restricted to being.
When you want to make a lifestyle business, like, do you think merchandise, how big is?
In a coffee shop, I don't know how much people are really. I think do a store-in-store, maybe that works, but then you're only going to sell the coffee, and another brand is going to be selling the merchandise. I think as a coffee shop, it's not really a big part of it. People will get some tumblers, or for getting they'll get it, or they come for coffee equipment. I don't know
how many people buy that, right? Because I like buying merchandise. So if I like a store, like, I pick things up, I'll buy a tumbler, I'll pick up some coffee beans, like something on those lines. But does the consumer also think like that?
Beans for sure.
Yeah,
beans beans for sure. Bread, we sell a lot of bread out of the cafes, but the other stuff is a small part of the overall revenue.
You want to grow that lifestyle part of the business?
I don't think now. I think the focus is still more on just the product,
right? And how? So coffee is usually seen as a product of. It is seen as a product of the West, right? Like, it's more global than like chai.
Yeah.
Here. So have you seen that shift in perception with the consumer, or do you still feel like people still relate to coffee as more of a global product of the West?
In fact, I mean, I also had a follow-on question on this one, but after.
Yeah.
But I think it's more about how the Indian coffee is being perceived outside. Have you seen any take on that? I mean, do you have any take on that?
Yeah, so I mean, two separate questions. I always say that, I mean, filter coffee has been in the South forever, so I don't think necessarily that people automatically associate coffee with something as Western. What I do find very interesting...
Don't.
Yeah. What I find very interesting now is that there's a lot of foreign brands coming to India and positioning themselves as very premium
today,
whereas in their home markets they're not premium at all. And so I think that it seems that there's a perception among foreign brands that, hey, I'm a foreign brand, I'm gonna come to India. Indian consumers are automatically gonna ascribe a premium.
It's so the coffee. I tried Tim Hortons for the first time in Delhi, and like, I tried the coffee. It was so fucking bad. Like, I've never had like worse coffee than that. But the stores were full.
Yeah.
So like, what? It was like a mini Punjab, like, out there. Like, every Surdy wanted to get a piece of that, whatever trash ice latte that they were serving, and I was like, what is going on here, right?
So I think these foreign brands, they get a lot of hype initially, right? Because it's a new thing. In many places there's lines out the door, but they really struggle to maintain that because Indian consumers have evolved to the point where they actually appreciate what you're serving within your premise. It's not just about, hey, this is a foreign brand, so automatically it's good. There's so many domestic brands who are producing better quality stuff. So now consumers are much more savvy. And I think any foreign brand that comes and is like, okay, I'm foreign, I'm from outside, so now automatically,
I'm cool.
I get a premium. That's gone.
I feel like that still exists, right? Like with say a Starbucks, they're still selling at a premium compared to like a Blue Tokai. I'm sure the coffee at Starbucks is way more expensive.
But now they're starting to face headwinds because of
Okay.
that. So you'll see that price points are coming down.
Yeah.
Store formats are becoming smaller. So they're now having to come more Indianized.
Blends are also global, right?
No, I think
In India, they source from India because there's 100% import duty on coffee.
Really?
So that's the
But they have their King and Rose.
But that'll be like a
PR partnership, so that's better the coffee.
Yeah, when you order a standard coffee, it comes from Tata.
Okay.
So it's one of the few countries in the world where they roast locally.
Okay.
Otherwise, they roast centrally.
How big is the coffee roasting aspect of things in India? Like, do we have like enough plantations? Is there innovation in
like there's
roast
happening? What 3 lakh tons of coffee grown in India, roughly.
How much is that? Like, give me an understanding of like how many stores can that? How much coffee is 3 lakh tons?
I mean,
I understand in
Probably very lots of bag. Your Siraj is so like.
I mean, lots of it.
Tons of it.
Exported as well.
Yeah, so more than half of the coffee is exported. Yeah, but actually 2/3 of that is Robusta, which is kind of the lower quality coffee. So
Okay, 2/3.
yeah, so there's around anywhere from 80,000 to 1 lakh tons of Arabica.
Okay.
And so, for example, at our scale, last year we bought around 500 tons.
Okay.
500 tons out of 80,000 tons were, like a drop in the bucket.
Yeah, exactly.
So there's definitely scope for more and more brands that come up sourcing domestically. To your other point is that now there are Indian estates who have started to make a name for themselves. I was talking about
the artisanal one, right?
Yeah.
So I was reading, I think India still is like 6th, 8th, one of the, in terms of exporting.
Yeah.
But in terms of growing. Yeah. Okay. In terms of growing. Okay.
Yeah.
But in terms of the artisanal, we've seen that happening in the whiskey space. Have in the tea space.
Yeah.
Bala, right?
Correct.
What he's done with tea. So, do you see that happening with coffee as well?
Yeah. So there's like a handful of states that you can go. They're in UK, they're in Europe, they're in the US. So they made a name for themselves they go to all these fairs and they give samples, and really well-known roasters around the world have started buying their coffee. I would say that's still a sliver of the market. The overall perception of Indian coffee is that it's fine, but it's not amazing. Where there are estates who are producing amazing coffee, they are helping elevate the name of Indian coffee overall. And also Indian estates are also focusing a lot more on improving the quality of coffee that they grow. So I think the perception is changing over time. It's still a ways away from it being considered like a Colombia or an Ethiopia or something like that.
Right. How big do you think coffee in India can be? Like in terms of like tapping into like tier 2, tier 3 markets?
There would have to be something about Indian consumers that they're unique out of any other consumer in the world that coffee will not become a big thing in India. In every single market around the world, that especially coffee growing markets, what happens is initially they export all the good quality stuff. They drink tea or instant coffee at home. Then as the country starts to become richer, they start consuming the better quality stuff that their own country produces. Coffee becomes a bigger part of the scene. And if you look at for example, take China.
Yeah.
China is obviously significantly richer than India.
Sure.
But used to be a very tea drinking country, had no coffee consumption.
Right.
Now, Shanghai is one city in China that has 10,000 cafes. There's only 5,000 branded cafes in India in the entire country.
No way.
So one city in China has double the amount of the number of cafes.
That Luckin coffee chain, that's the one in China.
They're a big one, but there's many. Like even Starbucks has tons. I heard there's another Luckin spin-off that has grown really fast. But there's also like better quality, specialty, everything. They have the whole range of options. So branded chains in India, I think, are poised to really just take off over the next, I mean, assuming growth path continues, we don't have some crazy, economic problems here. It's very, very positive. Flip side is climate change is starting to have a big impact on coffee.
Yeah.
You don't know. I'm not sure if you know that in the last 3 months alone, the coffee price has gone up by 75%.
I didn't know that.
So now it's at a 50-year high.
Wow.
And that's because of demand has increased, plus climate change is starting to have an impact on supply.
Yeah.
So I think the current price that coffee is at is probably more of what the steady state is going to be going forward. So that's going to cause some adjustment for people in terms of coffee maybe become a little bit more of a occasional beverage for more people rather than something that they can have.
How expensive is it going to be? Like, are you as a company also going to increase prices considering the COGS are going up?
So one thing is that it's easy to absorb prices in a cafe because you're only using a small amount of coffee to produce a cup of coffee. We'll still have to raise prices, but it'll be 10, 20 rupees, which is, hardly 5 to 10% versus a 75% increase in the purchase cost today. So some of that will absorb. But I think on the home side, on the wholesale side, they're not going to be able to absorb that cost increase as easily. So it'll be much more expensive.
Right.
And if you've seen that recently, like filter coffee, which is kind of more of the lower end of coffee consumption, they've raised their prices from like 600 to 800. They announced it's going to be 1,000 rupees a kg. So,
wow.
So there's been a huge inflation in coffee prices, which is definitely going to cause some challenges for the market.
But you're saying there is enough coffee in India that's being produced, right?
Yeah. So I mean, I think what happens is that the price is set by the global price.
Okay.
Because if I'm a coffee grower,
it's like oil. Okay.
Yeah, I can sell it to a trader, and that trader can sell it to a big export house, and then they can export it and get whatever the global price is. So it's not that just because I'm in India, I should be able to get it for half the price of what the global price is. That's not possible.
Not the case.
That's not possible. So that's the kind of challenge that's happening in the industry.
Okay, so that is one challenge. What are other challenges that, like, over a period of time that you face, like building this brand out?
I mean, people is always this is a very people-intensive business. So right now we have around 2,500 people.
Okay. Across with like service stations.
Everything. And it's a fairly high turnover business, right? So at this, as a barista, if someone comes and offers me an extra 1,000, 2,000 rupees a month, I'll probably switch in a heartbeat. And I wouldn't blame them at all, right?
Yeah.
Like if you can earn more money, you should 100% earn more money.
Right.
But that means that you have a decent amount of turnover happening. People come to us or people try and poach our staff because they know that they have a certain level of training and understanding.
You do the coffee training programs as well?
Yeah.
Okay. No, for your staff or in general as well?
So we have, there'll be brewing classes that happen at various cafes. There'll be roasting classes that happen at the roastery. But obviously we have an extensive training program for the people so they go to a classroom for 5 days. Then there's an online platform where it's 3 months on the job training, where you have videos plus a dedicated trainer in each cafe. We're responsible for making sure you're able to kind of groom up. But people, I would say, is the biggest challenge.
But you want to be a part of like some sort of coffee education in India? Because I know like a couple of these small roasteries keep doing their workshops, and like there's stuff that keeps happening where they train baristas, and like there's some course that you can enroll in.
Courses we don't really do. We used to work with some other organizations that gave those, but we were able to just do it internally. So it's, especially at our scale, it's just better that we have a whole training team that basically does the same curriculum
in-house.
And then we have a group of people who then start doing, like if you as an individual want to learn how to make coffee, we'll have a shorter version of that.
Okay, so you do have a thing.
Yeah, we're doing, there's an event that's happening in Bangalore this weekend where it's cup tasting, where you have to identify, there's 3 coffees, you have to identify which is the one that's the outlier. So it's a competition that kind of engages people so that they can taste coffee, and we have some prizes and stuff like that.
How big of a role does a barista play in like actually getting the flavor out of a coffee or like making the coffee?
So we've tried to make it as like reduce the dependency on the skill of an individual person. by putting in place equipment that's very consistent and delivers high quality.
Yeah.
So like the grinders dispense the same amount of coffee every time. There's an automatic tamping machine, so the pressure is the same.
Yeah.
On the espresso machines, they're calibrated so that they dispense the right amount of water.
Right.
But so like frothing makes a big difference.
Yeah.
So how does a barista froth that to the right temperature? How's the latte art that he makes? Does he make or she make a nice design, or is it a little bit of a dot? But it's really the bigger thing is how do they treat you as an individual?
Exactly.
So anybody, I'm sure, would rather have, instead of getting a 10 out of 10 coffee that takes 20 minutes and served by a guy who doesn't care, versus having a 7 out of 10 coffee that's fast, the person's smiling, they're asking how your day was, they know you by your name.
Yeah.
That's the experience that we're trying to deliver. Obviously, we want to push ourselves as close to that 10 out of 10 as possible, but it's really more focusing on the service that barista delivers than crafting the perfect cup of coffee.
How do you keep those things in check? Considering how many stores do you have now?
140.
Exactly. So like across 140 stores, like how do you make sure that, okay, the barista is having a good day, so that like all of the consumers that come, all of the customers that come in that day, like get a good cup of coffee?
So one is we have some systems in place that we can measure that the beverages that are being dispensed towards the correct recipes.
Okay.
So like the machines are linked to technology systems.
Okay, wow.
That we can see that.
Yeah.
But then we track NPS and reviews very carefully. There's incentives given to team members who are able to improve the ratings, and there's a whole checklist that people have to go through. We do internal audits, we do external audits. So there's a whole framework that gets layered on top of that.
When you initially started the company, did you always foresee it back then to be as big as this?
No. We started with nothing in mind. Actually, nothing. No business plan, nothing.
Yeah,
it was
like I just want to roast coffee.
I just want to roast coffee. I don't want to sit at a desk. I want to drink good coffee.
Yeah.
I mean, when you started, you have this idea that I'm going to be spending all my time at coffee estates and like
now he's
amazing, tasting all this amazing coffee, developing all these different roasts. Yeah, now, I mean, if I was to roast the coffee now, it would be crap. People would start to complain. Like, we were able to at least have the team has grown far beyond what I could have done.
Are you back on the laptop now? Like from like that?
Yeah. So now it's full circle.
Yeah, full circle.
It's totally full circle. Now I don't do anything with my hands. I'm in meetings or I'm on.
So how's your journey changed? Right, like we spoke about coffee, we spoke about the brand, but what about you as a person since you started? Are you still giving the same amount of time towards business operations, or have you shifted your roles? Where's your key focus area today?
Yeah, so I mean, for the first, I would say almost 3 years, I was hardcore involved in the production. So even roasting a lot of like for the first 2 years, I think I roasted most of the coffee.
Right.
Even then, it was still more being involved in coordinating orders and managing that. Now there's an entire team that's built out. So in the day-to-day operations, there's very little role that I play. It's more about aligning people, making sure that everybody's moving in the right direction, setting the overall strategy.
What is the part of the business that you had? Like, okay, what is your day at office like? What are the teams that you usually use?
So there's 3 teams that I directly oversee. The coffee.
Yeah.
So like all the sourcing and the roasting.
And how big is that team?
They would be around 15 people.
And what are their functions like?
So it's a mix. So some people are responsible for sourcing. So they spend their entire time visiting estates, identifying new growers to work with. They provide some technical expertise to people who are, let's say, at the cusp of being able to produce good quality coffee.
Right.
Our team can suggest some small interventions so that maybe the next year we can start sourcing coffee from.
That's amazing.
We've set up, actually in some places, we've set up these small cooperatives where we source coffee cherries from small scale growers and then we process it ourselves.
Okay.
So the idea is to have more integration at the farm level.
Yes.
And then
the farmers are okay with it.
Yeah, some are at a level where they know what they're doing.
Exactly.
They produce the coffee and we just select the lots from them.
You ever own a plantation?
No, I mean, maybe it would be interesting to lease a plantation and just kind of learn and understand kind of what's happening.
But that's not the pop. That's not part of the business.
It's way too expensive to buy a plantation.
Yeah. How's the business though?
The plantation,
as a plantation, yeah.
I mean, this year it'll be amazing because the coffee prices are through the roof, but it's very volatile.
Yeah.
So in previous years, you wouldn't have been earning very much.
Yeah.
And I think because of climate change, there's also a lot more volatility.
Yeah.
Where in India only has one coffee harvest. So if you get screwed during that harvest time, then you're screwed for the entire year.
Okay.
And so there's an incredible amount of volatility that happens. So the bad years can be really bad, and there haven't been a lot of these really good years that have happened.
Yeah.
So now at least they're hopefully are making up for some of the pain that they've suffered in the past.
Yeah.
But you really need to start adapting towards different equipment at the farm level to overcome the weather changes. Maybe look at different varieties of coffee to grow, look at different processing methods. So there's a lot of work that has to happen now at the farm level just to be able to maintain given everything that's happening with climate change.
Right.
What could be interesting is to stay at a coffee state.
Exactly.
No?
I'm thinking of joining like Blue Tokai is one of these co-ops that they've made.
Tula has that vineyard. I mean, just still have those events.
They do. They have the yearly festival.
Yeah. So we do a tour every year. Is there where we take we take people to the coffee plantations. So there's a short window, right, from like November to let's say early Feb where activity happens. So that's when you want to go.
A program, that could be an idea for you.
Yeah, for sure. He said early Feb because like when I tapped into it, like when I said hey, like take me as well. Now he's like it's only happens till early Feb. And they come back to me later. This
sort of happened. I think ours happened in Jan.
Yeah.
But there are farms that have homestays where you can come and see. It's just that if during most of the year there's nothing happening, so you just see some shrubs that they're nice and you'll stay at a nice place. But you won't really get an idea of what it tastes like real coffee.
Okay, so one function is how you source the coffee. What is the second and the third function that you look after?
So then finance.
Okay,
because I had a finance background.
Right.
So and then HR.
HR as well.
HR.
Okay.
Yeah.
And what does your day look like in general?
So it varies. I end up having to do a decent amount of traveling.
Yeah.
Whether it's for podcasts or
no, lately you've been doing a bunch of podcasts, right?
Yeah, I don't know, somehow it's just happened that way.
Yeah, okay.
It's not a intentional strategy, but if there's interesting people to meet and talk to, then I'm happy to do it.
Yeah.
But
you said this is gonna be the
I'm taking a break now. I'm taking a break. I feel like there's been too many lately. So you're my capstone.
Yeah. Yes. No, but like it was awesome having you on the podcast today.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, Aman.
Mm-hmm.
Tell me more about your QSR business. Like how's your growth journey been like?
So, I mean, I've taken a bit of a back seat. That's why I'm also here.
Yeah.
Hanging around. But yeah, I've gotten myself into a couple of things.
Yeah.
From Kevinters to Knox and then something in the optical and pharma space.
Yeah.
So I'm just kind of operating out of cafes.
Right.
I'm going from cafe to cafe.
Today.
Meeting individuals and...
So Aman's really been after me to like scale genre as a concept. Like make it like more...
Yeah.
More coffee driven, like do like more cafes and like doing all of that. Do you think there's more space in the market in general to do that?
Yeah, I think.
You're also in the food cocktails.
Exactly. So not just purely coffee. Right?
I mean, I think across formats, right?
Yeah.
So I think if you're opening up just a coffee chain, I think that's going to be a bit harder because what is the differentiation? Now, a lot of those places have been occupied by larger.
Tiny opening was in the kiosk space, and now that's also kind of
So like I feel like there is some space in Delhi within the premium space, right? Like for cafes.
But I think within any like standalone 2, 3, 4 location outlet serves good quality coffee, good food, and something else, or even without something else. Even if you just serve great coffee and great food, I think people will come. So I see, especially for us, I see way more competition from individual places rather than any sort of chain player. If a chain player comes and opens next to us, I would actually be happy.
Yeah.
Because they're going to have a different clientele and then it kind of actually helps grow the market more.
Today.
if a standalone person came, because you're able to give a much more curated experience than what we can get.
That was our biggest competitor. Like often people, ask you meetings or whatever, who's your surrogate and competitor or whatever. But I've always felt there was always the individual, these mom and pop stores that open because they can offer more variety. For example, the person is on the ground. I mean, the entrepreneur, the promoter is on the ground. And they can also change, they can play with the pricing a bit, cut your customers. So those are actually, I think I find them to be a bigger threat than another chain.
Right. So exactly, right? Like with genre as well, we're able to give a way more curated experience because like we have like the experts on ground all the time running one single store. So like all our effort goes into running that store. So we're able to capture that audience. The restaurant stays full the entire day. But if you were supposed to do that across like 150 stores, that would be a different game.
But that's why we say there's certain businesses you don't need to necessarily grow them. They need to be more like passion projects, or they because they need that nurturing, right, on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah.
Maybe a couple, 2 or 3, 4, but then you gotta draw the line somewhere with these kind of concepts.
Fair. Okay, what is innovation for you looking like over the next few months or years?
So now we want to open up, very soon we'll be opening up some more experience centers.
Okay.
So these will...
What do you mean by experience?
These will have live baking happening. They'll have actually a full kitchen. And they'll have way more coffee options. So that same thing that you're asking, we'll have 4 or 5 grinders there. We'll have nitro coffee on tap. We'll have more manual brewing.
Which cities?
So this will be Delhi and Bombay and Bangalore.
Okay.
So I think this is not going to be the model that we want to scale, but it's important that we have a few of these in every city so that it becomes just more engaging and more interacting. Then, we're quite bullish on the kind of capsule business. I think especially as prices are high, capsules are an affordable way for you to get coffee in a very medium manner.
What do you mean?
Like an espresso type.
Oh, okay.
Capsules.
Interesting. What is the coffee pods business or market like this?
So right now we're still fine-tuning the machine and setup that we have, but we see a lot of potential in that.
And what do you personally feel about it?
I think it's so people want convenience.
Correct. It's more about functionality even.
I mean, there's it's a good tasting product.
Sure.
It's not going to be the same as if you brew yourself a pour-over or you brew yourself something on an espresso machine. But even if I look at my own behavior, we have an espresso machine at home. We have pour-over equipment, French press, everything. There are many times on the weekend where I just order from Zomato from the cafe just because I just don't feel like making a cup of coffee right now.
Right.
And I think that is a very strong entrenched behavior amongst consumers. So how can we bring high-quality products to market that overcome that?
So I also saw that you've got into this can business, right?
Yeah.
What do you think about that one? Is that, do you see that market growing?
It's growing, but for us, it's a very low base. So it's growing fairly high, but from a low base.
Right.
I think it's hard to say right now. I think it's a bit early because that market is very price sensitive. So like there's the top.
How much are you selling
Nestle? So we sell those for anywhere from 150 to 190.
Okay.
Versus like 60 rupees for a Nescafe.
Good. The sweet pricing, I think in India would still be under 100.
Under 100.
In this FMCG, quick commerce space. But I do feel that at least for quick commerce, I've seen the premium segment seem to be doing too bad. They seem to be doing better than what it would on the empty.
But I'm pretty sure in one of those Nescafe cans, I'm not getting coffee. Like that's just sugar and milk. Like
but again, you're people look at 60 for this, 170 for you.
Yeah.
Do I really want to do that?
I could probably get it on Zomato at maybe $50 more.
Yeah.
200 bucks more.
Yeah. And for us, there's no way that we could ever make a product that would meet our quality standards at that price point.
Right.
So that's sort of where we see the challenges and there. Whereas in other markets, you pay almost the same amount for a canned coffee as you do for going to the cafe.
Right.
So that's something we're looking at, but it'll take time.
Okay, future is looking great for Blue Tokai.
Yeah.
And thank you for being on the pod, Matt, today.
Oh no, thanks for having me.
This is awesome.
Yeah.
And thanks someone for joining me today. Okay, cheers. Tokai coffee is fucking awesome, guys. I gotta pick it up. It's great. Thank you.
Great.
Yeah.